we are going to move now on to the Mantis beings, okay? Now, if you go on the internet or and you research, if you Google Mantis beings, you get a lot of people's experiences, okay? And they generally seem to be accepted as a very old race, very wise. They're known as the caretakers of children. They're benevolent. Now, Ted, you're saying something completely different about them. So I think we should start off firstly. When did you first encounter a Mantis being?
I didn't know that I had encountered a Mantis being until under hypnosis with Barbara Barthlick. We reviewed an incident in my life in which I encountered them in close proximity. I was on a craft where they were, and now I did describe to Barbara on that very first, for those of you who have listened to all the podcasts or maybe read Masquerade of Angels, the very first alien abduction hypnotic regression that we did, that was brought out in the cotton field here in Alabama when I was a little boy and taken, and in that process I had been cloned. Now there were creatures there that I saw on this large mothership where they had taken me. I did see some Mantis creatures there and describe them, but I was not in a close encounter with them. I just saw them. That was the first time. Now, the next time was very vivid, very realistic, in which I had a up close and personal encounter with them. And that was a different regression. So those are the only two times.
Okay, and as far as them being known as caretakers for children, you've got a completely different view of what they're doing to the children, which is what?
Well, you got to understand the nature of these aliens. We're dealing with non-human entities, but we as humans want to make them act and think like humans because we can relate to them better. And I deal with people, talk with people all the time who are very pro-alien. They really think and feel that they're here for our best interest. But yet I have not run across any evidence that makes me feel that's true. All the encounters that I've had with them have not been positive. They've done some positive things to trick me into thinking they're positive, but I learned that these were lies and deceptions. Okay, so we have to get to the nature of these mantis. Now, a small, tiny insectoid mantis there that you find on a bush by your house or in the forest, what does it do? Just because it's been genetically created to be human size or bigger, taller, doesn't change the nature of what it actually is. And it may have been, its brain may have been genetically improved so that it has rational, the ability to think, create, and act outside and beyond the insectoid position in its natural state. But that doesn't mean that its true character has changed. And it's still an insect. It still behaves like an insect, and it feeds on flesh of other creatures.
Yeah. Birds, lizards,
right, everything else that it can get. And I witnessed this on a ship where I was. I saw a craft come in with children, babies. I'm gonna say they probably, the oldest one was maybe 4. They were 4 down to toddlers, diapers, and they were brought in and they were taken off of this circular round craft onto a conveyor belt. And they were, now the children were kind of, I'm not going to say totally paralyzed because they were moving their arms and legs, but the children were somewhat like in a coma. It's not like they had their true faculties mentally. They were just sitting there like they were in La La Land. But they rode this conveyor belt inside a compartment. And this is gross and this is horrible. But this story has to be told. People have to know what we're dealing with. This was a processing center where these children were being prepared for food to feed these mantis. And they were taken in there, and all of their extremities, their arms, legs, their heads were all removed by a laser knife type thing. They just seared right across it and it dropped off. And these parts of the bodies were packed in containers to be sent somewhere else. I'm not sure. I didn't witness where they were taken. But then the torso cavity was split open. It was put on continuing this conveyor belt, and it went down onto what looked like, it wasn't, but the closest thing I can say to describe it was like a conveyor belt, but it rode very slowly as if it was like a buffet line. And these tall mantis, and there was bunches of them, they were feeding on the organs inside the cavity of these remains.
Oh
Now,
my
it's just
God.
gross and sick enough, but I saw it. I even told Barbara, I said, my God, it looked like they were eating into a big baked potato. And now, when I've told this story, people say, you're just trying to horrify everybody. Well, you know, I've been quiet for years. I didn't want to tell people what I knew to protect all of you listening. This is one of the reasons I say the government has gone to extreme measures to make sure that we don't know what's really happening because they can't fix it. And I think one of the main reasons, and I'm not taking up for the government, but I think I can see, what would I have done? What would you have done in that position to have recovered that craft at Roswell and found such remains inside that told them probably what was going on, but there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. Of course, they lied to the whole world. They didn't want the panic that this would cause. And now here I am coming along all these years later, and I'm telling you people listening this horrible story, but I saw it, and now I have to back it up with the fact that after I recovered from the shock that I went through of reliving this experience and witnessing what I saw, and believe me, people, it took me some time. I was an absolute, the old expression, basket case. I was an emotional wreck, and I couldn't even work for days. It left me mentally, spiritually, and physically crippled to have relived this event and saw what I saw, and the heartbreak I experienced from it. And Barbara then comes back later after I'm able to talk with her more about this, because momentarily I had told her, I said, this is it. I'm not doing any more regressions. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And she came back later and she said, Ted, and she got out some records with no names on it. And she had, I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to say more or less 7 cases of other people that she had worked on that had witnessed the very same I was taken out of my home, and it happened when I was in Amarillo, Texas. When I was living there, I lived there 3 years, and it was an abduction that happened there, and I don't know where I was taken. Now, Amarillo is, as the crow flies, is not that far to Dulce.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
by car, maybe like about a 4.5 hour drive by car from Amarillo to Dulce. So it was in that area. It's possible, but I don't know for sure. I just know that I was taken there, and they did things to my body. They put headphones on my ears. I think they were trying to program me for something, and maybe they did. I'm not sure what they did to me. I just remember the headphones being put in a chair that looked like a dental chair, and it laid back, and they did different things to my ears, to my eyes. They took blood. They had, like I said, the headphones on my head, and then in the process uh, of being removed from that room where those things were happening, we went into an area where I was to get back on a UFO to be brought, I returned, I'm assuming, back to my bedroom. And that's where I saw another UFO where these children were being brought out of this UFO on that conveyor belt. And then it's like, I don't know if they did it or if there was a friendly force of aliens in charge. I'm not sure, but I remember I suddenly found myself in the room where the feeding was taking place. And
Jesus Christ.
and that's the story. I don't have any better details, but that's what I saw. And Barbara confirmed that I was not the only one that had ever seen this situation.
And Ted,
So yes, they're the caretakers of the children. Yes, they certainly are. You can see that deception and that lie. They're insectoids, and they're behaving like insectoids. Why do we expect anything different out of a mantis?
Yeah. And Ted, why children?
Well, I would say that one cavity of a child's chest with the stomach, the heart, the liver, everything, that's a meal.
Okay.
That's a meal. A human size would be, maybe, in my opinion, bigger than what they need. It might be a waste. And I can assure you from what I've seen, these aliens, these entities waste absolutely nothing. They have creatures of all kinds to feed on every part of the body. All the blood goes to the graze. The children, we just discussed where that goes. And anyway, just think about it. I don't need to describe it for you. You can imagine. You
Yeah.
can imagine. And they're not clean. Uh, the very putrid smell in these UFOs. They're not clean at all. They're nasty. They poop in the floors, and then they have another insect like big roaches or whatever that come and eat it all and clean it up. That's the way it gets cleaned up.
Ugh. UFOs are often described as hospital-like. Excuse me. UFOs are often described as hospital-like. Very clean, no rivets or anything, very smooth.
Well, now, when I was taken on that childhood abduction out of the cotton field, the one where I was cloned, I was taken to a mothership.
Yeah.
Now, the mothership had human workers in there. It was clean and it did not smell bad. I'm talking about these small craft that are like the taxis and the operators, these insects that operated.
1963. In this small farming town on the outskirts of Los Angeles, 17-year-old Linda Porter awakens to find herself aboard a strange craft. From what she is able to recall later under hypnosis, a small creature that appeared to be a gray alien led her towards a light-filled room where she encountered another type of being, one much taller and with the features of a praying mantis.
Very standalone, very odd case. The fact that this occurred in 1963 is very intriguing because it's before the abduction phenomenon became popularized.
There have been depictions throughout various abduction scenarios that include the gray aliens and this larger, tall insectoid being, very praying mantis-like.
Linda Porter claims that throughout her teens and 20s, she experienced numerous other encounters with these alien beings. But it wasn't until the age of 45 that she finally reached out to investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe to tell her story.
I received a letter carefully written from Linda Porter. This led up to her sending me a whole lot of drawings.
These drawings appear in Linda Moulton Howe's book, Glimpses of Other Realities.
One of the drawings was of a praying mantis about 8 feet tall in a room that was very odd, had a cylindrical object and sparkles of light.
There have been quite a number of different types of aliens seen, allegedly by contactees. But the ones that are really peculiar and very rare are these very scary, skinny, large, basically intelligent insects that have been reported.
People have drawn parallels between the aliens that are reported on board UFOs and insects, particularly bees. The grays, for instance, could be equated in some way to the drone or the worker bee. The so-called praying mantis type could be seen perhaps as the queen bee. Larger than the others, more intelligent, they're taller than a person, 8 or even 9 feet tall. And the gray aliens may handle the person who's being abducted, but in the background, there's this praying mantis type that seems to be calling the shots.
According to Porter, she is part of a larger experiment, one in which these aliens appear concerned with her soul.
She said, whatever we humans are, we have an animus, a soul, that is mysterious to them. And they are trying to find out, where does the soul spirit go at the moment of death? And that the non-humans were studying the recycling of the souls in and out of containers.
She talked about being shown 3 cylinders. Contained in each cylinder was a human being in kind of like a state of suspended animation.
Linda Porter came away from her 2 or 3 decades of interaction with these non-humans, including the at first terrifying praying mantis, that these are extraterrestrial biological entities that have taken a deep interest in the evolution of life forms here, that they have manipulated DNA in already evolving primates, that they have created a whole series of different models.
Might the numerous accounts of mantis-like beings reported by alleged alien abduction victims
along with the ancient San story of a praying mantis god, be evidence that an otherworldly race of insectoids really does exist